Hello and welcome back to ParanormalNL Podcast, a podcast in Newfoundland and Labrador, Canada. Now, I'm your host and founder, JV-Noseworthy. I hope everybody had a great Valentine's Day last week and listened to ParanormalNL Podcast on UPRN on Tuesdays at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. This is a pre-recorded show broadcasting on the UPRN, United Public Radio Network, 107.7 FM New Orleans and 105.3 FM Gulf Coast. PNL Podcast is sponsored by the BOG team, a boots-on-the-ground BOG team doing paranormal investigations in Newfoundland and Labrador, Canada. PNL Podcast believes in international paranormal networking and highlighting paranormal places, people, and things all over the world. Contact me, your host, Jen, at paranormal.nl.podcast@gmail.com or follow PNL Podcast and the BOG team on their link tree. Now, I'm going to bring on my guest tonight. Let's get on with the show. I have all the way from Virginia, USA, I've got Alex Matsuo. Alex, welcome.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Thanks for being on the show tonight. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. How are you?
How's the weather in Virginia tonight, Alex?
It is very cold. It is very cold.
We don't have any snow yet. Can you believe it? I'm out in the middle of the Atlantic, the furthest easterly point in North America, and no snow.
Oh, wow. Oh, dang. Ah.
Yeah, that is definitely different. So, Alex, tell me a little bit about yourself. And I know you have the spooky stuff and you're an author. Tell me a little bit about the spooky stuff.
Yeah, so I am a paranormal researcher. I used to be a very active investigator, but I'm not investigating quite as much anymore. And yeah, I founded the Association of Paranormal Study in 2011. Had experiences when I was a kid. Like a lot of people's origin story, we have that experience as like, oh, well, this is weird and also really cool. And then, yeah, after I graduated with my master's degree, I decided like, hey, I wanted to start my team. And we've gone through quite an evolution over the last 13 years that we've been going. We've gone from like really active ghost hunting team to doing residential cases to, now we're a little bit more research based, meaning like we're researching subjects more often than going out and like going to haunted places. We will go to haunted places sometimes, but we're not actually there to like prove like the paranormal exists, because to the people who experience it, it's real to them. But more so of like figuring out like, well, why do these experiences happen? Is it from psychology? Is it there is something anomalous happening? There's so many reasons why people have experiences. So that's kind of what me and my team are diving into further these days. But yeah, and I started the Spooky Stuff blog as my pandemic project. But I also wanted a space to kind of run my mouth without my team getting in trouble.
Well, you're really doing a great job with your videos and your research about a lot of different things. I really enjoy your videos. It's very informative.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, you're doing a great job. And then, of course, you're author with Women of the Paranormal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that's probably the project. I mean, I've written many books that I'm proud of, but this is probably the project I am most proud of. Because women have always been in the paranormal. Like we've always been there. We've always been there, but it seems like when it comes to like paranormal media, men tend to give more of the attention, which kind of sends the wrong message to the public about the paranormal space. Makes it seem like, oh, it's so male dominated. But I actually find it like quite the opposite. I think there's a lot more women involved than we actually know. I mean, my team was all female several times over the years, and even today, like there's one male on my team, and the rest of us are female. But yeah, so Women of the Paranormal is kind of like a love letter to these women, these female pioneers of our field who really made a huge impact. Like
Yeah, you
Sarah.
mentioned a couple of people off air. I know you'd mentioned Lorraine Warren, and on the last episode I had on for Valentine's Week, I spoke to two members of the Warren Legacy Foundation, and you mentioned a lot of other people off air. Do you want to mention some of those names again?
Yeah, so anyone who's done a lot of investigating, you're probably familiar with the EVP classification. Class A, Class B, Class C. The whole reason why we have this, well, it started in Europe. That whole classification system started overseas. However, there was an American woman by the name of Sarah Wilson Estep who became very fascinated with the concept of capturing spirit voices on recorders. So she started networking and reaching out to people all over the world who are in this field, and she found this classification system, and she brought it to the United States. So the whole reason why, like, North America, started using this system was because of Sarah Wilson Estep.
I
Another
love that.
one,
Yeah.
yeah, right? Another one is a woman named Thelma Moss. She ran the parapsychology lab at UCLA. So if you've ever seen the movie The Entity or know of the Doris Bither case, she actually oversaw the investigators who did that case. Barry
Okay.
Taff was one of the main investigators who has worked a lot with Zach Bagans. Yeah, so I mean, women have been there for centuries. I mean, one of the first ghost hunters, or at least one of the first people to investigate the paranormal as we know it, as we do today, was a woman named Catherine Crowe. And this took place in the early 19th century. And a lot of people don't know that. And it's so that's the big reason why I wrote the book, was so that the legacies of these women can be preserved and written down.
Well, thank you for doing that. I think you're doing a great thing with your work. You've got a lot of other books also. Did you want to talk about your other book?
Yeah, so my latest release is Haunted Northern Virginia through the History Press. And this is a book about all of the haunted places in, really, it's the most northern tip of the state. So we're looking at Arlington, Alexandria, Leesburg, Middleburg, Springfield, Falls Church. So these little towns that are right across the river from Washington, D.C. Washington, D.C. usually gets all of the attention when it comes to these haunted places, because it's DC, it's a major tourist destination, it's the capital. But just across the river, you have possibly, I would argue, almost one of the most haunted places in the country, and that's really because of all of the history that happened here in this area. I mean,
There's a
Northern
lot of military history there, right, Alex?
so much military history. I mean, Northern Virginia basically had a front row seat to the Civil War, Revolutionary War, the War of 1812. I mean, Northern Virginia had a front row seat to all of these events and how they impacted Washington, D.C.
Yeah, that's a big deal. And thank you again for your family's service.
Thank you. Yeah. You're welcome.
Yeah, there's a definitely, I think when things like that happen, the land itself just steeps of not only just history, but just the feelings and of those spirits. We talked a little bit about off air about the psychological aspect of it.
Hmm.
Did you want to talk a little bit about that? I know you've been doing a lot more of that kind of work.
Yeah, yeah. So since I haven't been doing a lot of like investigating these days, and a lot of it's just because like work has me so busy. I've been doing a lot of exploration in, like, I guess you could say, like, the sociological side, the anthropological side of the paranormal. Like, why do we have ghost stories? I mean, it's a lot deeper than, it's like, oh, because ghosts are dead people. It's like, no, 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 there's a lot. It gets a lot deeper than that. Why do we have experiences in the first place? Is it a way for us to process trauma? Is it a way for people to deal with maybe the more uncomfortable sides of 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 our world? So but also, when we are investigating claims, we'll look at the whole dynamic of, like, the family, the location, and we'll see what we can figure out when we put all of the pieces together.
Yeah, and that's a big part of it, the family, and some of the experience that they had? I know when you were a child, you mentioned off air that there were some experiences that you had, and of course, unfortunately, a lot of older folks don't believe in it, or you don't have to be
Mhm.
older, even younger folks don't believe in it. Especially when your kid comes to you and says, "Hey, I saw a ghost under the bed." Well, you're going to say, "Oh no, that's nothing. Go back to bed." So,
Mhm.
did you have experiences like that as a kid?
Yeah, so my family pretty much believed in it. But my grandmother grew up in Appalachia. So that's Appalachia is just all sorts of spooky. So my grandmother didn't really talk to me about it much. My great grandmother did. Her mother, um, she was very mystical. I wouldn't say well, she was spiritual too, but she was very mystical to me. And then my mother was very much like, yeah, that stuff is out there, but it's not ghosts, it's demons. Don't you dare bring it into the house. So that's mainly what I grew up with.
Unfortunately, right?
It's
But
almost
did
like
you
if you don't talk about it, then it won't happen. That was like the idea. That's what she thought would work. So
did you have any of your own experiences that you wanted to share?
uh, yeah, I mean, I can talk about one of them. It was probably like my first experience. I was about 7, 8, maybe even I want to say 7 or 8 years old. Um, I was I mean, I grew up in San Diego for context. I grew up in California, Southern California.
Love
We get
California.
we
And
get
the
rain
sunshine.
maybe. Yeah, the sunshine, the weather's always great. We get rain maybe 3 or 4 times a year. It doesn't rain very often. Doesn't rain very often where I grew up. So when I was in Kentucky visiting my great grandmother, and my grandma was with me too, um, seeing a rainstorm, like an actual rainstorm, was like, oh my gosh, I was like,
You
wow,
need
this
to
is
come
so.
to Newfoundland and Labrador. We got tons of rain for you. We call it RDF, Alex, rain, drizzle, and fog.
Oh, that's so funny. Yeah, so when I was looking outside watching this rainstorm that, I wasn't exposed to a lot, I ended up seeing a hooded figure outside of my bedroom window.
Okay.
And yeah, and this hooded figure was completely unbothered by the rain, completely unbothered by the wind. It was almost like it wasn't even windy, but it was because I was watching the trees lean sideways. But this figure was completely unbothered, and
Maybe they were from Newfoundland. No.
I know, right?
Oh, I had to
And
throw that in there, Alex.
all good, all good. And so I got spooked, and so I closed the curtain and ran to the bed I was sleeping in. And the way this bed was, it was one of those really, really cheap mattresses. So if you sat on the bed, it didn't sink. It tipped, like it just tipped. It
Oh,
tipped to
okay.
the weight. And so I got into bed, and the bed tipped, and I thought maybe my great grandmother had gotten in bed with me. um but no, I slid right off the bed. There was nobody, and this was like, if I'm on this side, the way the bed tipped, I went down the opposite way, so it's not like the bed tipped and I slipped off the same side where I was sleeping. I slid across the bed to
The
the other
other
side,
way.
the
Oh,
other way.
wow. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
weird. That is weird.
Yeah, it was very weird, and then I looked up and I just saw the bed stay tipped like somebody was sitting on it, and then it just went back into place like nothing happened. So,
Mm.
and it was that experience I was like, "Oh, yeah, that's cool." But also, "Oh my gosh,"
Yeah, you're like, "Okay, what kind of physics is going on here?" Because even as a kid, you knew that was weird, right?
Yep. Oh, even as a kid, I'm like, "Well, that's strange."
Did that kinda lead you down the road that you are now?
Yeah, I would say that was definitely the inciting incident. And I had like smaller, more minute experiences after that growing up. Like I saw a ballerina stretching in the theater that I was doing a show at,
Oh, that's
which
cool.
would not be which would not be like a thing because when you book like a show, you have that entire theater to yourself. So having a ballerina stretching um, when you already have the place booked does not make a lot of sense. So that was a bit of a weird experience. So yeah.
Yes, for sure, definitely. Tell me a little bit more about your blog, the spooky stuff.
Yeah, so like I mentioned, that was kind of like my pandemic project. But I'd always been blogging, probably since about 2010, 2011. It started off as like a personal blog where I would just, talk about my, daily life and whatnot. But then once I started leaning into more of the ghost stories and doing paranormal research, that ended up kind of being like I don't want to say a dumping ground, but it was kind of like a resource of where I was keeping all of my research. And then, of course, COVID happened and 2020 rolled around. I was home a lot more. I wasn't really talking to a lot of people. I was working from home, thankfully. But this was giving me a way to connect with the world. And also, I could always do research from my computer at home, which was nice. And I decided, I'm like, okay, I'm actually going to give this a name. I'm going to give this a brand. And yeah, we'll see what happens with it.
Is there any kind of like favorite thing that you like blogging about? Bring over your cat. Let's see your friend.
Oh yeah, let me come here, baby.
I
Come
saw some
here.
ears. Hello.
Yeah, this
Who
is
is this?
Zoe.
Oh, hi, Zoe's.
Zoe.
I
Yeah.
have a cat exactly like that, but it's a boy. Oh,
Oh,
hi, Zoe.
hi,
Yes,
baby.
mine hangs out on the chair while I'm podcasting and likes to watch what I'm doing. Now, do you
Yeah.
ever find that Zoe has ever, you know how dogs point? Does Zoe ever point at spirits in your house or anything like that?
Oh, I'm sorry, baby. My microphone hit her. She's very curious and she's very inquisitive, as you can probably see. She's very engaged right now. There have been times I've seen her like staring, staring at something like on the wall. Sorry, baby. I'd like to think like maybe hopefully it's a bug. you know,
You ever like get out your SLS and see her interact with stuff?
Yeah, I've done that too. I haven't seen anything really. Oop, she's done. I haven't seen anything crazy quite yet on SLS. At least not anything I couldn't debunk.
Right.
So
'Tis
yeah,
the season for coughs and stuff, isn't it?
it really is.
Ever since COVID, right? For sure. I think
Mhm.
it's definitely still a thing, for sure, and there's a lot of that going on around here. But, yeah, I love a good benevolent pet story. But, do you have
Oh,
any of your favorite stories that you wanna talk about?
yeah, actually, the one. I totally forgot about this one story. Actually, that happened with Zoe. Uh,
Okay.
that'd be a ghost. I think it's a ghost story too.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so I used to have a calico cat who was 18 years old when she died.
Aw.
And Zoe used to pick on her a lot when
Did
she was
they
alive. Like Zoe would follow her, Zoe would sneak up on her. Like Zoe kind of tormented her a little bit. Um, but we had Callie euthanized at home so that all the cats could see her and they would understand like okay she died. Um and there like I want to say it was like a couple days later, my husband and I and our other cats, we were all in the living room and we hear Zoe go "Rah!" like just like screaming like she had seen something. And so we go into the bedroom and she looks completely spooked, like she looks scared. And I'm like, what the heck happened? And when we made the joke, like she looks like she's seen a ghost. And a couple days later, I had met with a pet psychic. A pet psychic had reached out to me after Callie died and offered her services. Like, if you want me to talk to Callie, I can. And so she and I met, and I didn't mention any of this to her. And she was saying things like, "Oh, Callie misses you," and she says she was her time to go. So a lot of really generic stuff.
Aw,
But
okay, yeah.
then she said, "But Callie said she's going to stay until the snow melts." And she also said that she's sticking around because she likes messing with one of the cats that used to mess with her.
You knew exactly who that was.
I knew exactly what that was. And I'm like, oh, okay. I'm like, I know exactly what you're talking about. And then I want to say it was like 6 months ago. I actually had a dream about Callie. Like I could feel for her fur. I was holding her. Like it was a very realistic dream. And but then my husband and I, we were both startled awake because Zoe had screamed again,
Oh,
like she had seen something. So,
interesting. Yeah,
It's
yeah,
very interesting.
I really like benevolent pet stories. I had Rob Guttrow on one time before.
Oh,
I
yeah, Rob, yeah.
Yeah, he's with our, in the pet realm, and we gotta give a shout out to Sam Baltrusis for sure, because
Yes.
Sam was the one who introduced me to you.
Aw. Yeah,
Yeah,
Sam's
you gotta
awesome.
follow Sam. He's an author, and he was, on my show before. I was with UPRN, but he's coming back on again in 2025, so watch for Sam. And
Awesome.
Alex, tell me more about your books.
Yeah, so let's see, we talked about Women of the Paranormal, we talked about Haunted Northern Virginia. Yeah, so another book that I wrote was called The Hamptonville Hauntings,
Okay.
Ghosts of the Trivet Clinic. And the Trivet Clinic is in rural North Carolina in a town called Hamptonville, hence the title Hamptonville Hauntings. And it's a very rural, like hospital clinic type place. And pretty much with that, what's interesting with that is it's said to be haunted by over 70 ghosts. And I've been going and visiting the Trivet Clinic and investigating there since 2018. And I mean, I'm not going to say that the claim is not far off, but the claim, I would say there's a lot happening there. And I could see why, so many people think that so many people think that it's that it's there's 70 ghosts. It's a very, very active place. So
So I've
yeah.
got your, link tree up here. I was just gonna go through find my books on Amazon, and there's your new book you got there, and you've got an Etsy shop, you've got all kinds of stuff and a newsletter. You
Yeah.
wanna talk a little bit about some of these things?
Yeah, so yeah, there's a lot. So the Etsy shop, that's where I sell like my signed books and everything. Um and I also sell like some print on demand items like t-shirts and mugs and things. But yeah, I have a Facebook group, so if you like to connect with people who have, like similar interests, definitely that's the place to go. I have a TikTok channel where I make a lot of short form content. Yeah, so there's a lot of there's a lot of different things that are
There's
quite
another,
fun and
book here, The Brave Mortal's Guide to Ghost Hunting.
Yeah, so that book came from this was after I started the spooky no, actually no, it was before I started the spooky stuff blog, but I was still getting a lot of questions about how to ghost hunt, like how do I get started? And there was a lot of people who didn't know where to go or how to get started in this. So really that book was kind of a response to a lot of the questions that I was getting. And pretty much I was trying to teach people like, hey, don't make the same mistakes that I did. Here's basically what I did wrong. And yeah, so that's where that came from.
Yeah, because you have, your own group, when you guys were doing, your investigations. I know right now you're not doing a whole lot of stuff like that, but you had the Association of Paranormal Study. Did you wanna talk a little more about them?
Yeah, so I started the Association of Paranormal Study. Pretty much as almost like a call, like answering the call for people who wanted help, but they didn't quite have the resources or know like where to start with that. Um, so pretty much that's why I started the team. Um, and really just give people a resource, because there's been a lot of problems with people trying to find help and then they're not able to get help. And so I wanted to help be a solution to that.
Yeah, thanks for doing that because I know there's a lot of people out there looking for help 100%. And you also have a lot of, you've been on a lot of different things like the Travel Channel, Discovery Plus, CTV Sci Fi. Did you want to talk about some of those?
Yeah, yeah. So, oh my gosh, I don't even know where to start with that. Yeah, there's been a lot. I mean, yeah, that's a good question. I don't know. I'll have to think about that. I have to think about all the different appearances. I mean,
Do you have
they've always.
a book that's your favorite book? I know you've authored numerous books, but is there one that you find, that is your favorite book out of all of them that you've written?
Yeah, I would have to be women of the paranormal. So yeah,
Yes, most
definitely women of the
definitely.
paranormal.
Yeah, I'm glad that you wrote that for women. I mean, it's nice that you got that out there, for us women. And is there anything else that you want to talk about in relation to like any of your books or any of your experiences?
Hmm, that's a good question. With
Is that a
you know,
Ouija board behind you? Like a Ouija board thing on the wall there?
oh yeah, it's from like Spirit Halloween. It's like a little planchette decorative item.
Ah, okay. Do you do that much, the Ouija board
Oh,
stuff?
I don't use a Ouija board, but I collect them.
You
So
collect Ouija boards, but you don't
I
use
do.
them. Where
Yeah.
why
Well,
is that?
I don't have anyone to use them with. So that's mainly why.
Ah, okay, yeah, because a lot of people say they don't like to do them alone, which,
Mm,
is a good thing not to do. Some people don't mind doing it and often do it alone, but,
yeah.
most of us don't recommend that unless you know what you're at, right?
Well, I actually, and the other reason why I don't really use it is I don't really believe in it. That's the big thing. I don't really believe in Ouija boards. But I
Well,
love
everything is with intention though, right? So if you don't believe in it, then that would make sense for it not to work.
yeah. I mean, once I started learning about all of the history with Ouija boards and like how they all came to pass and fruition, I was like, oh, okay. It kind of, I don't want to say it ruined the magic for me, but it was kind of like, oh, that's it. Oh, okay.
You were thinking there was
Right.
more to it, right?
Yeah, I thought there was gonna be more to it, so I was like, "Okay, I guess not." So I was kinda like, "Well, dang, that's a bummer."
So do you have any special, type of investigative equipment that you like to use?
Ah, that's the other thing too. Kinda like the Ouija boards, really the only equipment I use is recording equipment, like audio recorders, video
Right?
recorders,
Mhm.
that kinda thing. I don't use, like, any stuff that blinks or jingles anymore, at least or if I do, if I am with people that use it, I take it with a grain of salt because, um, especially with anything that's made with AI, because I work in tech. I work in tech, so I'm exposed to AI, I know how it's built, I know it's how it's developed, and I just can't. I just can't take it seriously because I know exactly how it's working, and I'm like, "Well, mm."
That's a good point. I mean, do you wanna talk to people about that? About some of the tech and AI that they should be wary of?
Yeah, so I'm actually working on a webinar about AI for paranormal investigators, but pretty much to sum it up, um, AI it's a they're trained models. Like you have to train the model, and for me, it's like what I tell people, like AI cannot detect a ghost because we haven't even baselined what a ghost is. We don't know what it's made of. We don't know how it works. The only way that we are training these AI models is man is training it. So, and here's the other thing, like AI apps and everything, they have access to your cameras, they have access to your GPS, they have access to your search history, they have access to your microphone. So, if it does seem to respond to you intelligently, it's because it's literally listening to you. Like it's studying all of the inputs you're giving it in your phone, whether you're googling something, or you're giving it access to your location. Like it's doing research, and that's even before if you do take away access to your phone and or to your camera and microphone, it still has all of the information that you inputted before you even arrived at the location. So it's one of those like, eh. And plus, especially with generative AI, it learns as it goes along. So the more you use it, the more the AI is going to learn, and it will just regurgitate what it thinks you want in response. So that's the big thing I tell people. It's like,
That's
you know,
interesting. Is there
yeah.
any particular app that you wanna talk about? Like, for example, I don't know, a lot of people use the Necro app or the Spirit Talker.
So I don't actually a lot of those apps are like paid, so I don't pay the money. I don't pay the money. Necrophonic, that is a phenom generator. Uh so that one, but and that one that's one that has gotten caught recording people and regurgitating what people are saying. So it'll
Okay.
actually record your voice and spit out like what you're saying and just adding a lot of reverb and changing the pitch to
Hmm.
it.
Interesting. Makes
Yeah.
you wonder, right? Yeah, for sure. And that's why, a lot of people like to use old school techniques. It's got nothing to do with electronics. And when something comes up that way, then it's interesting because it's not electronic. They don't know
Mhm.
anything about you. It's
Yep.
old school. It's totally random stuff. Like I have a gentleman who uses like dice and uses a book and will ask questions and use ask it to turn to a certain page and things like that in the book. And
Mhm.
have you ever done many old school investigations like that, or?
Yeah, I actually tend to do more of that kind of stuff, so
Mhm.
more it's more like mechanical as opposed to anything thinking for me. Even things that are reactive, I'm very skeptical of, like the cat balls and the REM pods and
Right, yeah.
that sort of thing, because it's all very reactive and like we know what it's reacting to, but we haven't been able to properly baseline like what's in our environment. Like, is there static electricity? Is there a bad outlet? That kind of thing.
Mhm.
And I think that's partially why I've gotten so I don't want to say tired of it, like I'm gonna quit, but I've like the whole ghost hunting world has kind of gotten me exhausted because it's like when you see all these things and it's just like ugh. So I do like the more of the old school methods. I mean, I'm even
You mean
more
like dowsing rod stuff, or?
yeah, well, so like using, just recorders and video cameras,
You're still
baby
using
powder.
tech though. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, baby it was
Uh,
so yeah. But the tech that's being used today by a lot of ghost hunters where it's very reactive, a lot of blinking lights,
oh god, yeah, the REM
AI.
pods REM pods and stuff.
It's
Yeah.
it's kind of exhausting, especially when it's like, oh, this isn't really like working. So
So with the powder, did you catch anything?
with baby powder, I have not, but it's good to track if like to make sure like there isn't anything physical going through. I did have one person who used baby powder and it technically worked, but it was because they found out that the husband was sneaking out in the middle of the night to get snacks.
Oh
Um,
my gosh, that's hilarious.
so technically the baby powder did work. Technically it did work. So
How about, like, other things, like, have you tried using smoke or a fog machine or, different things
um
like that, like physical stuff?
not me in particular, but I know someone who did, and after hearing, one, how expensive it is to run a fog machine, I was like, "No, no, no." If ghosts have any sort of but that would also indicate that ghosts have mass of some kind. They could, but we haven't there's not enough substantial proof to justify a $70 fog machine and $30, liquid. It's like, eh. Um But yeah, and plus, if you have people who are allergic to the stuff, that makes it a little tricky as well.
It does, yeah, yeah, we had it one time at a festival, and you could tell we were like, "Yeah, we're not using that next time."
Yeah.
But
It's
yeah.
always a fun way to find out who's allergic to what.
Yes, that's for sure. Is there any other, historical stuff about Virginia? Now, if, somebody from around the world were gonna go visit Virginia, where do you recommend them going
I would say definitely go to,
for paranormal tourism?
I would say definitely go to Old Town Alexandria for sure. Yeah,
And
definitely Old
what's
Town
in Old
Alexandria.
Town Alexandria?
There's so pretty much that entire town.
The
It's
whole town?
the whole part of Old Town Alexandria, like almost every building has a ghost, has some kind of ghost story. It was one of the first like towns that got established in the United States. George Washington grew up in the area. He actually sent his crops from Mount Vernon to the Old Town Alexandria Farmers Market. So there's a lot historical wise, but there's some really good ghost tours that happen in Old Town Alexandria that I highly recommend. I want to say it's the town of Alexandria that does the really good ones. Um, and there's actually two different versions of it. Like in one, you go in one direction, and then the other tour, you go in the other direction. So it's like
Okay, that
you have
sounds
to take the
fun.
So you have to take the tour twice basically to get the full picture of what's going on.
We have
So,
something similar here called the St. John's Haunted Hike with Dale Jarvis. He's one of our local spooky guys, and he's got a
oh,
lot of,
nice.
yeah, he's an author of local Newfoundland and Labrador culture and lore and things like that around town. And they also take people physically around downtown St. John's and show them different places of what, things that actually happen down there. And we're similar, like where you're at in Virginia. You
Mhm.
can't go 5 steps without bumping into a ghost. As soon as you start hunting down there, boom, they're right there. Because we have a
Literally.
huge military influence here too, just the same as Virginia has a huge military influence. Have you gotten very many military ghosts?
Oh, there's a lot, especially with the Manassas battlefield. Like that, it's all military. Um, San Diego, I mean, we had a lot of military ghosts in San Diego, because San Diego is a military town between the Marines and that whole bit. So yeah. Oh,
Right.
and Gettysburg is basically all a military haunting as
Hmm.
well. So yeah.
Yeah, there's definitely, I think, a big residual with stuff like that.
Hmm.
Have you gotten any of your friends to capture any cool pictures or anything of any military spirits?
Yeah, yeah, it's happened a couple times. So, um, yeah, no, yeah, it was an interesting experience. When it comes to photos, though, not really, not really.
How
At least
about
not without
EVPs?
like a
Any
lot of distortion.
right? Any cool military
Mm,
EVPs?
a lot of times when these experiences happen, people aren't actively recording, which is kind of, and that's the other thing that I've been
100%. It
exploring in my
happens all the
research.
time.
Yeah, it's like, people when people have these experiences, they're not actively pursuing it. So, yeah. Yeah. So, yeah.
Do you have any favorite EVPs you captured?
No, not really. I'm like 10 years behind on reviewing my EVPs in full transparency.
Yeah. Some people review on the spot, others wait until they get home and review like especially the video evidence at home. But I usually find that the night vision stuff, especially with
Mhm.
the night viz camcorders, you get a lot of activity with the night viz stuff. I find.
Yeah. Yeah. You definitely can get a lot of activity with that. So,
Most definitely. Now, tell me a little bit about your Master of Arts and you're doing psychology, and tell me how you're combining that with your paranormal talks that you do with your blog.
yeah, so I haven't used my degree in quite a while, but yeah, so I mainly studied like musical theater and Shakespeare. Um, yeah, so that's pretty much uh I
Well,
don't
that
use
kind
it a
of
lot.
helps you with the blog, right? In
It
talking
does
and things like
a,
that.
a little bit, yeah, it does a little bit. At least it gets me more comfortable with people. So,
Do you have a bucket list of places that you haven't been that you want to go, like paranormal wise, or books that you haven't written yet that you want to dig into?
that's a good question. I'm actually taking a break from a lot of things this next year to help me because I've kind of gotten so overwhelmed with everything that it's like I've been this close to quitting.
Oh
Like,
no.
but it's because of burnout because I'm absolutely burnt out.
Do you
So,
know when you just said that your camera glitched?
oh yeah, oops,
It
interesting.
did. It doesn't want you
um,
to.
yeah, so um, yeah, so I pretty much taking a break this upcoming year. So, and I'm trying to not get myself back into it because at least for now because I'm just so burnt out by it. And plus I have a family member that's really sick, so I'm trying to make myself more available and be more present.
Right.
Um which makes it challenging. So it's like I can't really think about what I want to do down the line in the future just because of that.
And that's a
'Cause
topic right there, because being us as women, we're torn in 27 different directions because we're doing so many things, and then the podcast, and then trying to balance the podcast life or the paranormal life with your normal life. Like you said, there's a lot of people getting burnt out and, moving on and doing different things.
Yeah. Yep, exactly. Yeah, and a lot of it too is having to deal with the people because that gets
What's up with that, Alex?
you
What's your
know,
theory on it? You're doing some of the psychological stuff. What is your take on all that?
yeah. I think because I would say that the way people are has changed dramatically from when I first got involved in this. I think when it was more like esoteric and more like underground, like you didn't talk about it much. Like I feel like people were nicer, but now that it's become like a way for like your 15 minutes of internet fame and it's so competitive. And plus, a lot of people in this field are really sensitive to a fault. And so when there's like even minor disagreements, people absolutely explode. So
Yeah, that's too bad. It's almost like post COVID road rage on in the paranormal world, right?
mhm.
Unfortunately, that does happen. But us folks like to stick together, and I believe in doing the whole networking thing and spreading the love and light.
Mhm. Yeah, I know. But I find that the love and light people are some of the most toxic people I've ever
Oh
met.
God, yeah. I say that with a grain of salt now, mind you,
Yeah.
Alex, with the love and light thing, because I know people use it a lot,
Oh,
but
especially mediums, especially psychic mediums who are like, "Oh, just love and light." And I'm like, "Y'all need to do some shadow work. Like, y'all need to good lord."
y'all need to ground yourself, right?
Right. It's like, my gosh. So, I don't know.
Y'all need to pick up your cat and hug it, right?
Seriously, seriously.
But
So, yeah.
now, if you were gonna come to, have you ever been up to Canada?
I've been to Vancouver once.
Vancouver. Okay.
Yeah, but that's it.
Did you enjoy Vancouver with
I
all of
don't
its rain?
I don't remember much of it because I went to go drink.
Oh, you didn't get to go see the big trees and all that good stuff?
Nope, I drove up in the afternoon and went drinking and then drove back. And then, well, I didn't drive, but then we went back to Seattle.
Okay, yeah, yeah. Yeah, Seattle's a fun place.
It
If
is,
y'all
it
never
is.
been there, it's a cool place to go visit.
Oh, you
What
should go. It's a neat city. I really like it.
So do you have any other bucket, places on your list that you haven't been around the world?
Um, I wouldn't mind investigating the White House.
The White House. Okay, why is that?
Because Well, there's so much paranormal stuff happening in DC, and Abe Lincoln apparently is one of the most active ghosts in the area. So to get a chance
Okay.
to get in there and see it for myself would be cool.
Have you been to DC yet?
Oh yeah, I mean I live right across the river from it, so I
Yeah.
I
So
go
you've
like,
been around the monuments and all that stuff.
oh yeah, oh
Have you
yeah.
ever investigated around the monuments?
No, because I try to not be in DC after dark. Because the National Mall is horribly lit after dark. Like it's almost pitch black. So, and I don't know why. I don't know why it's that way. But I remembered, we went to the Washington Monument to watch the fireworks
Right.
last year, and we were
Yeah.
walking back, and it was pitch black on the National Mall with like thousands of people
Hmm.
like they're trying to get back home as well. But yeah, anytime I've been to DC after dark, it's been horrifically dark. Like just like I can see why so many people get robbed in DC after dark because there's no light. There's absolutely no light at all. Unless like you're in like the city part of it, but if you're near any of the monuments or anything like that, it's almost pitch black. And it's nice on one hand because the monuments are beautifully lit and you can see them better. But on the other hand, when you're walking back to your car,
Right,
um,
yeah. You wanna
there's a
have
reason
somebody with
why.
you? Yeah.
There's a reason why the crime rate is so high there, after, especially at nighttime. So
So if
so
you go ghost hunting there, it's great because it's nice and dark, but, bring some friends or bring some protection with you, huh?
Yeah, no, I would pack. I would absolutely pack and bring pepper spray at the very least. But there's also so much environmental noise too in DC,
Okay.
between cars going and honking and people talking. And it's another reason why my EVP log is so backed up is because as soon as I start trying to do anything and people start talking, I'm like, well, it's out the door. Because
So
even if I
much for
do,
that session, right? Yeah.
yeah, and it's so frustrating. So for me, it's like, and that's the other reason why I'm like changing the direction of how I want to investigate because at the end of the day, it's like, I'm like, if I were to show this to anybody, would they even believe me? And yeah, and like I said, a lot of the times when people do have experiences, they don't have any equipment running. So it's become more about like, well, what was the experience like? How did you feel? Where were you? What happened before? What happened after? So like that kind of makeup instead of like being tech dependent.
So what do you say for the young person who wants to get into the paranormal? What do you say to them?
Don't do it. No, I'm just kidding.
To the older folks who are burnt out and leaving, what do you
It's like,
say to the younger folks?
don't do it. No, I'm just kidding. I would say don't get too dependent on the equipment and don't completely rely on the equipment to direct you in the conversation or to drive like the direction of where your investigation goes. Because I know a lot of people who will make some really weird, not weird assumptions, but because they'll believe like everything that comes out, like the blinky lights, the ovulus, the word banks, like they believe everything they hear. All of a sudden, like a simple ghost story of a little girl haunting the place turns into like there's aliens here and possibly Bigfoot, and then there's ghosts, and it's like, oh, okay, we just went a completely different direction here. So definitely like don't be too tech dependent. Look at the history, look at the experiences that people have had, and at the end of the day, what we should be there doing is investigating the claims. So really, at the end of the day, it's like, do the claims match up? Are they, um, you know, are they trustworthy? That kind of thing. So there's more to it than just blinky lights and beeps.
Right, 100%. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I want to thank you for saying that to the younger folk. And is there any other things that you want to say to the wise folk who've been in it for a while?
Ooh.
That's a hard
um,
question, right?
um, yeah, a little bit. Uh, honestly, a lot of times I wish that the older group or the more experienced group, it's like, let's all just sit down, take a deep breath, and let's just listen and let's just chill. Not everything is a rat race for views or likes or attention. um I think because there's a financial motivation behind a lot of this now, I feel like that's part of it. And not saying that you can't hustle from doing this. I mean, if you can hustle and do it well, good for you. But for me, it's like I just like the research. I like to share my research. And since I am taking a break this upcoming year, I probably will be making a few more videos when I have the time.
Yeah, I do like
Because
the folks that offer everything free, right? Because then you
yeah,
know that they're doing it because they wanna do it, they
yeah.
just inherently enjoy doing it.
Yeah, and it's just it's a passion. So, and if I
Mm,
get views out of it, that's great.
right, yeah.
I'm getting offers to review movies for free, so I'm like, "Oh, hey, I've made it." It's like I get a free movie screening. Um, and maybe like a free phone charger. Um, but yeah,
Wait,
so
did your cat chew your phone charger? Because mine does that.
no,
Uh,
I will get invitations from certain companies and brands to like try out products and then make content about it.
okay.
Um, I actually did one for a deck I just got sent. It's the shadow work card game. So it basically gives you question prompts to do shadow work. And so I made some content with that, but I'm like, oh, I can actually use this and be like, hey, do shadow work with me. Like, and some of these questions are deep, like this one is, In your childhood, what did you not receive, and how has this impacted you?
What did you not receive?
Like, oh God, respect? Just kidding.
Have to think about
Like,
respect.
uh, a
I would
hug.
have thought about like different toys or something like, oh, I didn't get a light bright or
Oh yeah, no, it's a shadow work deck, so I'm guessing it's more about like, is there any
right,
like
psychological
emotionally,
stuff. Yeah.
psychological, yeah.
Yeah.
And so I'm just sitting here, I'm like, this is a great deck to work with, but I'm like, ooh, some of these questions hit hard. Ouch. Or there was one, I think it was like, let me see if I can find it. What
I didn't
parts
get
of
a sister. There you go. That's my answer for that
there you
one.
go. What parts of your parents or guardians did you notice
Oh,
reflected
your
in
camera
yourself?
just glitched again. What was say repeat the question? What parts?
What parts of your parents or guardians did you notice reflected in yourself?
Your parents or your guardian. Now, when you say the word guardian, I always like to think of your spirit guide and
Oh,
who is that, you
I'm
know?
guessing since it's like guardian parents or guardians, it's like the people who were
Who
taking
are
care of you.
living.
Yeah.
I flipped it around and I'm thinking of the guardians that are,
Mhm.
spiritual guardians, right? What
Yeah.
qualities do you have that are similar to them?
Oh, yeah,
So
yeah.
I always tend to think about my parents when I think about those guardians.
Mhm. Yeah.
How about you? Who do you think about?
Well, I think about my mom, like,
Your mom?
my mom was very quick to anger, so,
Mm.
I
I
find
think
myself,
everybody's mom was quick to anger.
so I just kind of find myself, I'm like, "Oh, oh, that was my mother talking. Oop." So,
Oh gosh. What other cards have you got in there?
oh, let's see. Let's see. There's two parts of this. There's the identity card to help you uncover your hidden psyche, and then there's the integrate card, which are supposed to help you accept and grow from uncovered truths. So
Ooh.
let's see. Let's take a look at an integrating card. What hobbies, subjects, or areas of life bring you the greatest sense of purpose?
Hobbies. Well, we're doing it, man.
We're doing it right now. Good. Let's see, and then let's go back to the integrating deck. Let's see what we can reveal. Um,
Oh no. Quick, run,
oh,
hide.
right,
Where's my cat? I gotta cuddle my cat too.
I know, right. Oh, this one's childhood activities. What
Okay.
activities did you enjoy as a child, and what does this reveal about your inner child?
Oh, well, I liked
Yeah,
all the hopscotch and skipping and all that fun stuff and
same.
trading stickers and yeah, I still
Yeah.
love stickers. I have sticker right now on my laptop.
Yeah, I think mine is I really enjoyed watching cartoons and
I have a little
anime.
butterfly I
Oh,
use
that's
that
so
to cover up
cute.
my camera with
I love it. I love it.
when I'm working and not using my camera.
Nice. Yeah, perception. Oh, here's one, perception. How do you think others see you, and how would you like to be seen and why?
Yo, I'm fat as fuck and I'm right now, but I used to be skinny.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, yeah, I wish I was skinny again. Hashtag diabetes sucks.
Oh my
Okay.
God, right? Diabetes is
Yes.
the worst. Are you
Yes.
T1 or T2, if you don't mind
You
sharing?
too.
T2, okay. I'm a weird type, so
My entire
technically,
family, all 5 of us are T2.
okay, so totally off subject from spooky stuff, but you should ask your if you have an endocrinologist,
I do.
ask them about Modi diabetes.
Okay.
'Cause
Modi.
it's Yeah, 'cause that's what I have, and it's basically a genetic form of diabetes.
Mhm.
So instead of it being triggered by T1 or T2, it's genetics. It's genetics that cause it.
Oh,
And I
100% in my family.
Yeah, and that's how I found out because the endocrinologist I was seeing at the time, he's like, "Okay, your mother had diabetes, your grandmother had diabetes, and your
Mhm.
great-grandmother had diabetes."
Mhm.
And then he told me about Modi. They did the genetic testing, and it's like, boom, I had Modi. So
Surprise, right?
surprise, yeah. And there's 5 different types of Modi, so you may want to look into it. I do Mounjaro for my treatment, and it's fantastic, and it also kills my appetite. So I'm like, hey, but Yeah, and diabetes, that's the other reason why I was like wanting to take a break too, just to get my diabetes like in control.
I
And
hear you. Yeah, because we
you
like
know,
to
it's
stay up late, all kinds of weird hours. That don't help.
oh my gosh, yeah, and it totally messes with your system. And well, and
Yeah.
plus, when you're staying up late at night, you're probably moving a little bit more, and depending on what snacks you're eating too, it's like that can affect things, and it's like, so nice to meet another guy
Hashtag
buddy.
New Year's resolutions.
Hashtag
Alex is gonna
diabetes.
take care of more me stuff by the sounds of it,
Yeah, this 2020, yeah, I posted a status earlier of like, I usually do about 16 to 20 events a year.
right? You're
I'm
gonna
only
do less events, I'm
I'm
taking.
doing I'm doing 5. And
Okay.
that's like, and even then my husband's like, that's still too much. But I'm like, Um, yeah, well, actually maybe, well, I'm doing Awesome Con, which is a big con in DC. Dragon Con, that's like the big travel one. And then I'm doing like a couple of events at my local library. Um,
Where's Dragon Con?
Dragon Con's in Atlanta, Georgia.
Okay,
And
nice.
there's a pretty decent paranormal track. It's known as the X track. But I've done presentations at Dragon Con. The person who runs that track, Jenny Bird Peterson, I think is her last name. Really nice lady. She's really cool. She's very open to ideas as well. So yeah, I mean, Dragon Con's a great place for spooky people too. It's not a paranormal convention.
Right,
Dragon Con is a huge event. It stretches across like 5 different hotels.
nice.
There's like, I think 80,000 people that go to Dragon Con each year,
Okay.
so it's huge. But there's a lot of opportunity there, with like the little tiny X track, and my rooms were always full to the brim. So, it's a great event.
Love that. Yeah, so that's 2, and then you got 3 more.
Yeah. Oh, Con Carolinas, that's the convention where I'm the paranormal track manager. So, I mean,
Okay.
of course I'll be there. Um,
So what does that entail being a paranormal track manager, Alex?
So I basically help choose the guests, and then I help create like the panels for the programming. So,
Okay, gotcha.
yeah.
Yeah. It's
And
always good to
then
have a nice panel.
yeah, and it's
Yeah.
like a full weekend of programming. So it's like, I want to say 16 panels altogether of coming up with topics, writing descriptions, helping with the marketing.
Okay.
It's a bit of work.
Sounds
Um,
fun.
yeah, it is. Actually, it's a lot of fun. And then the other one is an event that my own team puts on. It's called the Paranormal Research Symposium. Um, so that one is more like the events that are held at like the Rhine Research Center, Society for Psychical Research, so more of like the parapsychology side of it. People who are interested in speaking, they have to submit an abstract for review. And that abstract is their speaking topic. And then myself and my team, we review the abstracts and we decide whether or not to move forward with that, and invite that speaker to be a guest. So it's based on a point system. So it doesn't matter if you've been on TV or if you've written books, if you have a good idea and you write it well and you can speak on it, then it's like, hey, you might be able to get a spot at the symposium. And that happens in Gettysburg. Um,
Gettysburg, good place to go. They're
it is
very
great.
haunted, Gettysburg.
Oh my god. Yeah, yeah, very, very much so. And then
Get
the
to
other
meet a
one,
lot of ghosts there for sure.
yeah, I joke that you can throw a rock and hit a ghost in Gettysburg.
You can. Most
Se
definitely.
seriously. And then the other one will be, it's actually a benefit event. It's called Scares That Care. It's basically one big, like, horror convention for authors. Like, it's a horror convention of authors, and you sell books, you buy a table, you sell books. And I think it goes towards some sort of cause, either it's cancer, domestic violence, like one of those causes.
I
Um
like that it goes
yeah.
towards a cause, yeah.
Yeah. I would like the symposium to get to that state at some point. We were not at that state last year, because
No?
we spent more money than we actually brought in, but for a first year, that was expected. But yeah, so that's the 5 events. Yeah.
So, Alex, tell people watching now where they can find you. But first, I'm going to do a quick station ID. You are listening in on UPRN, United Public Radio Network, on 107.7 FM, New Orleans on 105.3 FM, Gulf Coast. Paranormal NL podcast is sponsored by the BOG team. So, tell us again, Alex, where people can find you and where they can connect with you.
Yeah, so you can find me on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, as long as we have TikTok, X, Blue Sky, Threads. I'm under the spooky stuff. I also have a YouTube channel. You can just type in my name, Alex Matsuo, and it should pop up. And yeah, I mean, I'm pretty reachable. I do try to respond to all messages. I just may be a little delayed sometimes, but other than that, I do try to reach out. So
Well, thanks again for being on the show tonight. We really appreciated having you on. And you want to give a shout out to your fans before you peace out?
yeah, I mean, hey, spooky crew, thanks for listening, and yeah, catch us in the Facebook group, and let's chat about the interview.
All right. Well, you have yourself a great 2025. And thanks for being on Paranormal NL podcast with the UPRN.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Thank you.